One thing I've learned from speaking to legal professionals is this: success in law is not about being the smartest person in the room. It's about consistency, strategy, and how you handle pressure. In this video, I'm going to break down key lessons I've learned from barristers, solicitors, and people actually working in the field, things that will genuinely help you to work and study smarter. So, without further ado, welcome back to Season 2, Episode 2 of Work and Study Smarter, what I learned from legal professionals. So the first lesson is this: consistency over perfection. Professionals don't aim to be perfect, they aim to be prepared. Planning prevents poor performance. So small daily effort is greater than last minute cramming. So when you're thinking about this practically, when you're thinking about your applications and your work experience, you want to make sure that you are prepared for that work experience. And that first of all, you are preparing yourself to go out and find relevant work experience. We all know that law is competitive, but it doesn't mean that you can't shine once you're in law. Neither does it mean that you cannot get the opportunities that you need. So when we're thinking about studying, so this is work and study smarter. Working, we've spoken about that work experience, that exposure, that shadowing of a legal professional. When we're thinking about the studying now, we're thinking about short but focused sessions because we're studying smarter and not harder. Here's the example. Somebody might study for 2 hours and get less done than somebody who studies focused and intentionally for 1 hour. Now, I'm not saying if you study for 2 hours, you're not focused, but that's just the example we've got today. So when we're thinking about short and focused sessions, it leads me into one of my favorite methods of all time called the Pomodoro method. Now, I'm shortly going to share my screen and show you the Pomodoro method and a timer that you can use, which is very helpful online. So I'm going to now show you a website called Pomo Focus. And before I do that, I want to basically briefly explain to you what the Pomodoro technique actually is. So the Pomodoro method or technique is a popular time management system developed by Francesco Carrillo in the late 1980s, and it was designed to improve focus and productivity by breaking work into short, structured intervals separated by breaks. The name comes from the Italian word for tomato, referring to the tomato-shaped kitchen timer Carrillo used to track his work. So let's now delve into what is the Pomodoro method and how can I use it? Well, so you choose a task, any task to be accomplished. You set your timer for 25 minutes, and now I'm going to actually go on to Pomo Focus, that you work intensively and then you take a short break and you repeat. And after 4 consecutive Pomodoro sessions, you take a 15 to 30 minute break. Now, without further ado, I'm going to show you Pomo Focus. So let me just share my screen. This is Pomo Focus. As you can see here, your Pomodoro is very neatly and helpfully laid out for you. So let's say, for example, my task 1, let's say, okay, I'm getting ready to do my final master's exam. Let's say we're talking about, let's say, land law. So it might be land law session. Okay, let's say I need 4 Pomodoros. And then let's say I also need to do some criminal, for example. Criminal law session. Let's say I'm more confident in that and that I need 2. So right now at the time of filming, it's 2:45 p.m. This is telling me I will finish at 5:50 if I just do the Pomodoro straight away without any break. If I have short breaks in between, I will finish at 5:56. But if I want the long break as well, I'll finish at 6:06. So this is a very, very helpful session and very, very helpful tool to make sure that you are succinctly and clearly tracking your work and your focus. So back to where we are then. Okay, so we've spoken about those short focus sessions, but the bedrock of all of this is resilience and discipline. Resilience and discipline equals success, because when you are showing up even when you don't want to, that's when you are successful. Resilience and discipline equals success. Let's just briefly describe and explore the differences between resilience and discipline. Discipline is consistency. It's a consistent, proactive execution of tasks regardless of comfort or mood, and it's the foundation of daily success. Whereas resilience is the reactive capacity to bounce back, adapt and recover after you encounter those setbacks or failures. So discipline prevents that drift, whilst resilience ensures endurance. And that's why you must have discipline and resilience. So discipline gives you those clear, non-negotiable goals to build that strict daily routine. Resilience comes in and says, look, I've had a setback whilst doing this, and I'm now going to use it as a learning opportunity rather than final failures, and maintain a positive adaptive mindset. And that's where we have the growth mindset, because you are then successful. So resilience and discipline equals success. And that's why we then have the growth mindset. And this is what I do a lot of work on through my CIC, is doing sessions on growth mindset. So if you are interested in that, you can head over to the particular section or playlist on my YouTube around growth mindset. So growth mindset is the belief that abilities, intelligence, and talents can be developed through effort, learning, and persistence, rather than being fixed traits. This was coined by Dr. Carol Dweck, and this perspective views failures as opportunities to learn, and challenges as chances to grow, develop, which leads to higher motivation, resilience, and achievement. Okay, so when we're thinking about how can I adopt a growth mindset, and how do I know I have adopted a growth mindset? Number one, you embrace challenges. That's my favorite way. You view obstacles as opportunities to develop, and they're not threats. Number two, you view effort as mastery. So your hard work equals a necessary part of the learning process. Number three, you learn from criticism. Now, criticism can be difficult, but as long as you are taking it in and having constructive feedback to improve, rather than taking it personally. Number four, the power of yet. Believing if you cannot do something, you cannot do it yet. For example, someone might say, I cannot ride a bike yet. I cannot drive yet. So you are showing and believing yourself that you can get there at some point. And then finally, inspiration from others. Finding lessons in the success of others instead of feeling threatened by people's success. So people in a growth mindset aren't threatened by your success. They are actually viewing it as a source of inspiration. So when we're talking about growth and fixed mindset, the fixed mindset believes intelligence is static. Static simply means it's not evolving. It doesn't move. Avoids challenges, gives up easily, and sees effort as fruitless. So if you are in that fixed mindset and you want to get out of the growth mindset, you're in the right place, because now I can show you how to get from A to B. But the growth mindset, as we previously explored, believes intelligence can be developed, it can be harnessed, it can be pushed. You embrace challenges, you persist in the face of challenges, and you see effort as a path to mastery. So, if you are currently stuck at a fixed mindset, here's how you can very practically go into a growth mindset. So right now, if you're in a fixed mindset, you're telling yourself, I can't do this. Start by telling yourself day by day, it's a daily walk, I can't do this yet. And that yet framework brings you into the growth mindset. To that, focus on process. Praise your effort, strategies, and progress, not just natural intelligence. So focus that growth and that harnessing of that growth and harnessing of that effort, because your process does matter, because character matters. And then number three, learn from your mistakes. You know, mistakes are part of being a human. We're not perfect. None of us are perfect. So you're learning from your mistakes. You're treating your failure as an opportunity to grow, to learn, and reflect. What went well, even better if, is a framework that I really like to use, rather than just merely a reflection of your worth. Step outside of your comfort zone. Actively seek new challenges. So learning a new skill or language. Right now, I speak Spanish, but I'm also trying to develop my French and also going to my Italian. So that's what I'm trying to do. So I'm stepping out of my comfort zone, even in certain events that I might not have wanted to do. I'm doing those daily, actively stepping out of my comfort zone, because as I said, it's called a comfort zone for a reason, because you're comfortable. But sometimes to grow, you've got to be uncomfortable until it becomes your new mode of comfort. Reflect regularly. Use self-reflection or journaling to identify when you are operating from a fixed mindset. And actually, this is not an ad, but I actually do have a range of books on this topic. It's not an event, it's a journey, and I'll put the link in the bio. I have slogans, it's not an event, it's a journey. Be you, be confident, be happy, be brave, be bold, be strong. Those are some titles, and each of them have, each of the newer versions have blurbs and have messages to people who are stuck in a fixed mindset. So I've definitely put those links into the description box of this episode today. Alternatively, you can just go onto Amazon and type in Faith Brunel's insights, and they will come up as well for you. Okay, so coming really into now the episode itself, as we've talked about, so far we've talked about that consistency over perfection. We've spoken about the growth mindset, the fixed mindset, and how to move from a fixed to a growth mindset practically using the yet model. I cannot do this yet. I cannot speak French yet. I cannot speak Italian yet. Even if you're learning English as an additional language, I cannot fully speak English yet. So you're telling yourself this yet. So yeah, short focus sessions as we spotlighted briefly. This is Pomo Focus, really, really helpful, accessible at pomofocus.io, and it's a free app as well, which is really helpful. Okay, so yeah, again, you don't need to be perfect. You just need to be consistent enough to improve, because planning prevents poor performance. Now let's go into lesson 2. Skills matter more than just your grades. So law is not just academic. So key skills. So I'm speaking from a legal perspective because I'm going to be a barrister. You might have a doctoral perspective. You might want to be a doctor. You might speak from a different perspective, but I'm going to just utilize my perspective, but it's applicable and transferable to all of you. So law is not just academic. You need skills, key skills of communication, which is a soft skill, advocacy, and critical thinking. So you can have great grades, but still struggle with these without these key and important skills. So one may, attain a distinction in their masters, but not be able to network, not be able to advocate, not be able to exhibit critical thinking verbally. So you have that critical thinking on paper, hence why you got a distinction, but practically and verbally you're not able to. Now, again, if you are in that position, you're in the right place. Or if you're in a position where you're struggling with both, or you're struggling with one of those, wherever you are on the spectrum, you are in the right place. Again, in another episode, I will talk about how to get a distinction in your dissertation, which I've just got, so I can talk about that. But today I want to speak a little bit more about those skills, how it's more than just your grades. Grades are great. Obviously, grades are an empirical value that will help you get into certain courses, but you've got to have those people skills. You've got to have that communication. You've got to have that advocacy. You've got to have that critical thinking. So, for example, speaking clearly, conveying your concepts, being structured in your, being confident, explaining legal concepts simply. Now, I love this one because I am in a family of academics. Everybody's got something, everybody's got a great academic purpose, but we all have different experiences. So what we do, if somebody wants to build on the way that they speak to one person or that they explain concepts, we have an action learning set, as my dad would call it. So what we do, for example, if I want to practice my advocacy, I will present to my family who are not legally minded. Conversely, if my sister wants to practice her business presentation, she'll speak to us. So again, it's about speaking to people who are not on your course, and they can tell you, did they understand the concept? Were you speaking too quickly, or were you not speaking clearly enough? Or do you need to go back to the drawing board and just really get a little bit more information on a particular topic? So it's not just what you know, it's how you use what you know and how you convey what you know to people who don't know what you know. Lesson 3, there is not one path to success. And I think that's why apprenticeships are important and university is important, to understand that one can still get to the same destination, but they take a different path. And my whole mantra for this podcast is pivot and don't panic. So, but the whole mantra of my business, of my CIC, is pivot, don't panic, your journey can begin now. So it's not an event, it's a journey. And so setbacks are part of the journey, not the end of the journey. What I saw on TikTok the other day was sometimes we've had a bad day, when sometimes in reality it's just a bad 15 minutes, but we let that carry on to the rest of the day. So it's not a bad day if you've had a bad 15 minutes. It's a bad 15 minutes, but you can still have a good day after that bad 15 minutes. It's about how you pivot and don't panic. What do you tell yourself after you have some conflict, have some conflict with a colleague? What do you tell yourself when you've missed your bus? What do you tell yourself, when something's gone wrong or your car's broken down? So things like that, you can change your mindset. Be in a growth mindset and tell yourself, look, I had a bad 15 minutes. Look, I had an argument with my significant other. You've got to change your mindset. Everyone's journey is different, and that's why everyone's lived experiences, nobody can take away your lived experiences. experiences ever. Nobody can ever degrade or look down upon your lived experiences. That's your journey. That's your story. Own it, and use it to fuel you into your success. Rejections are normal, especially when you're getting into law. It's part of learning. It's part of the journey. You have setbacks. You have bumps in the road. I'm from a non-law background. I didn't do law at undergraduate. I don't regret it at all, to be honest. I loved KCL, King's College London, but I also loved the political overview. It's made me more cultured. It's made me more aware of different avenues and different things going on in the world. So yeah, pivot, don't panic. When you miss your bus, pivot and don't panic. When things go wrong, pivot and don't panic. Setbacks are part of the journey, not the end of your journey. And just a couple more lessons before I close today's episode. Lesson number 4 is exposure is everything. So you learn a lot from networking, shadowing, watching court, observing court practices and tribunals, real experiences, real people, not just textbooks. Yes, your textbook will get you to do your masters, to do your undergrad, to do your essays, but you've got to have a level of awareness of reality. So, for example, mini pupilages, vacation schemes, those are the kind of things if you want to be a lawyer that you've got to do. If you want to be a doctor, shadow doctors, watch the news, listen to podcasts, watch podcasts. Speak to doctors, speak to barristers, speak to judges. If you want to be a lawyer, you're in the right place. Again, I'll link it down. Watch our podcast, which is in 55 countries. Facebook Now Talks Law. Watch that podcast. Watch barristers and solicitors as I speak to them about their journey, about their setbacks, about their challenges, about what they would do differently and what they're enjoying about the profession. So watch podcasts, speak to professionals. At the end of this week, I'll be observing an employment tribunal. So that is getting me out of that just a textbook. Yes, I'm looking at contract law. Yes, I'm looking at different types of law, but I want to watch things happen. I want to speak to clients. I want to speak to people, get to know the people who are going through these experiences. Hence why I've done mini pupilages, shadowing barristers, going to court, observing how they interact with the judge and their learned friends and other barristers. So you've got to do it. It's not always easy, but it is necessary to give you that exposure, because when you have that exposure, you're building your confidence and you are pivoting, you're not panicking. But really crucially, the more you expose yourself to the profession, the clearer your path becomes. And that's so important. Right, lesson 5, we've spoken about it. I'm going to gloss over it because I spoke about it at the beginning. But lesson 5 is crucially, mindset is key. You've got to be in a growth mindset. Now, don't worry if you're currently in a fixed mindset, it's not the end. As we said before, you can move to a growth mindset by using the YET framework. I'm not there yet. I don't have a distinction yet. I've not passed my exams yet. I've not passed the bar yet. Because confidence grows over time. Guys, if you'd met me in year 7, I was not confident. I was not the same person I was today or I am today. I used to describe myself as shy. As you can see, that's not the case now, but it's a journey I've developed. The Faith Pomel I was then isn't the Faith Pomel I am now. Imposter syndrome is normal. I've experienced it before. And if you're interested in a perspective on that, I recommend you go and listen to Millie Grundy's episode where she candidly speaks about imposter syndrome. Resilience is what separates people. As I said, my framework, resilience and discipline equals success. You've got to do it. And your mindset will carry you further than your grades alone. And lesson number 6, work smarter and not harder. Use techniques like active recall, practice questions, teaching others. Now, let me just briefly spotlight active recall. Active recall is highly effective. It's something I use myself. You're strengthening your long-term memory by forcing the brain to retrieve information, not just passively reading notes. You've got to be actively recalling. So blurting, writing down everything you know, also known as brain dumping. Feynman techniques, which I'll do more videos on, but what it does, it increases your retention and your long-term memory capacity and improves comprehension of that information. But just briefly, I will briefly spotlight the Feynman technique because it's a very important technique. So it's used by a physicist, Richard Feynman. So you pick a topic, you teach it to a beginner, you identify gaps in understanding, and you refine the explanation. It's a little bit like what I spoke about with the action learning set as well. And it's about speaking to people who don't have that expertise and making sure they understand it, but in a very clear and succinct way. Yes, so not just reading notes, because studying longer doesn't mean studying better. You've got to work and study smarter. So, we're at the end of today's episode. But if there's one thing I want you to take from this, it's this. It's not an event, it's a journey. You don't have to have everything figured out right now. Focus on building your skills, stay consistent, even when things don't go to plan. Pivot and don't panic. Your journey starts now. See you all, and I look forward to seeing you next week. So, all I forgot to add, we'll see you all next week. Next week, I'm going to be speaking very candidly on the topic called You Don't Need More Time, You Need Structure. So follow me here on Faith Now Talks Law and tune in next Tuesday on the 5th of May at 12 p.m, where we're going to candidly talk about and discuss You Don't Need More Time, You Need Structure. Bye, everyone.